Hello, this is John Hodges and Rodney McKelvey again from Fort Defiance. We're going to talk about the replacing a heater element. If you suspect you have a heater element going out, we'll show you a way to test it once the cover's off, and then we'll show you how to replace it. So first thing we're going to do, make sure that obviously there's no electrical connection. We're depressured, and we've gone ahead and drained the jacket, and you use the high temperature hose to drain the jacket on this fitting, and you also open up the jacket vent valve just to make sure you're draining. So this is open, we're drained, so we're going to go ahead and take this off and close our jacket vent valve, and then we can start taking the box off. The whole unit needs to be cool at this point. Everything you're going to touch in here is going to be pretty warm if it's not. So make sure it's all cooled down. Alright, so he's got all the screws out of the heater box. There is a gasket between the heater box enclosure and the flange. We'll give it a gentle tap. So with those exposed, you'll see the ends of the heater elements. Those are the smaller nuts, and then the larger nuts are actually holding the heater block onto the heater flange. So we're going to take the smaller nuts off right now. Be very careful with this. Rodney's using a wrench as a counter torque. The studs coming off the back of the heater elements are a little fragile, so you just want to make sure that you're using a counter torque. Also note the position of all the wires, so you can put them back in the same orientation. It's a three-phase wiring, so you might want to either take a picture of it. It should be in the manual, but if you need to, you can take a picture of it or just draw a diagram of what the wires look like before you take them off, so you can put them back in the same spot. There's 3 jumpers. There's 3 wires coming from the electrical box, but there's also 3 jumpers. Okay, so now with all the wires removed and all the washers removed, we're going to check the individual heater elements for resistance, just to determine which one, if we suspect one is out, we need to know which one to replace. So we've got a multimeter. We've got it set for ohms. And you can see these 2, that's one heater element. These 2 are another heater element. And these 2 are another heater element. So there's 3 different heater elements. So individually we're going to check across each one of them. And the reading we should get, if it's good, should be between 16.7 and 19.4 ohms. So those 2 are good. And the last one is good. So these are all good. We're going to pretend one of them is bad for this video, but that's how you actually check it. So now we're going to remove the 8 larger nuts. The gasket that's still on there, you don't really have to replace that. That's just for the enclosure. The gasket that we're getting ready to take off, you do need to replace. Alright, so with all the nuts and washers removed, we're going to gently pry this off. Over time it gets a little stuck, so you just need to be real gentle with it. Okay. So now that those are loose, we can slide the entire assembly out. Be careful, there are some supports on the inside that you don't want to pull off. And then we'll just set this on the table. Okay, so we've got the heater elements on the table, and we're going to remove the middle heater element. So the first thing you want to do, you want to make sure that you're counter torquing when you take the nuts off. So we've got a flare wrench, and we're going to loosen these two nuts. On this side there's a white ceramic spacer held on very loosely with one of the 1032 nuts. So we're just taking those nuts off so we can slide the ceramic off, and then we'll slide the heater element out of the block. Now the ceramic elements are a little fragile, so make sure you don't drop those. All right, so we have the heater element out. We're going to remove this little clip on the end, and we're going to reuse it. What the clip is for is a rest, basically. It's a support for the other end of the heater element so they don't contact the jacket. All right, so now we're going to slide that clip back on the new heater element. Okay. We're going to slide the new compression fitting nuts and ferrules over the ends of the replacement element. We'll slide the elements into the fittings, and you want to sort of match up as far as how deep that goes. You want to match up the ends of the studs. You don't want them sticking out too far. All right, so as we tighten these compression fittings, we want to insert a wrench or another flat tool through the loop end of the heater elements to prevent it from twisting. And then we're going to tighten the compression fitting nut with the flare nut wrench. Okay, once those are tight, we can slide a new gasket on. All right, so we're back on the other side. Just going to make sure that that gasket surface is nice and clean, not a lot of scratches on it. All right, so we've got our gasket we're going to slide onto the heater elements. We'll actually slide it on. It's a little easier doing it this way. All right, then we're going to slide the entire heater element assembly in. Again, being careful with the standoffs on the inside. All right, we've got flat washer, we've got a lock washer, and a nut. Those will go on, and then we're going to torque those to a final torque of 120 inch-pounds. If those are too loose or if they're too tight, you'll actually leak out through that gasket, but 120 is right on the money. So once you get them close, the final tightening is a circular type pattern to slowly and evenly compress a gasket to 120 inch-pounds. Now we're going to put the ceramic pieces back on, so you need to slide those on. And we're going to install a 1032 nut close to, but just not. What you don't want to do is tighten that nut against the ceramic tightly, or it will crack the ceramic. The nut is there to make sure it doesn't rattle around too much, but it's there for the back of the wire. All right, so we've got the nuts on. In this order, we're going to put a split washer on, then a flat washer, then we'll have the wire connector, and then we'll put another flat washer, and then we'll put another spring washer, and then the final 1032 nut. Okay, a couple things to check before you do your tightening. Make sure the gasket is in place. Make sure your wires are in the right spot according to your diagram. Make sure that the wires aren't touching the nuts and you don't have any connection there. And then always use a backup wrench and counter torque that back nut. Two reasons. One, again, the stud is a little fragile. You don't want to break that. And you definitely don't want to drive that entire assembly back into that ceramic spacer. So again, the order is from the back. You've got a nut, then you've got a spring washer, a flat washer, you've got your wires, then a flat washer, and a spring washer, and then the nut. So always hold on to that back nut as you're tightening. Okay, one last inspection, just kind of a visual look around to make sure the wires are where you want them, make sure they're in the right order, and make sure your gasket is in place, and then you can replace the cover and put all the screws back in. Once we get the screws in, we're finished. Once you get it fired up, make sure that it's heating up the way you think it ought to. The timing is right. It's not going too slow. Make sure you don't have any leaks, water leaks. Okay, we're going to go ahead and button this up, and that should be it. Thank you very much.